Hello, my name is Vanessa and welcome to our virtual yoga class. I'm here to support you in your practice. We'll begin class by laying on our back, so take a few moments to find your way. Lay on your back, knowing that even as you are transitioning to laying down, this is when your yoga practice begins. You're starting to gather your attention and shift your attention back to your body. And as I always like to emphasize, this is something to cultivate. You're not naturally good at shifting and returning your attention back to our bodies from one moment to the next. So you're here, perhaps your spine is long, resting on the mat, legs are long. Hands can frame your hips, palms up towards the ceiling. You're noticing the quality of your breath with no judgment. You're taking a moment here to assess. And then find that supportive breath. Notice that throughout the class, you'll continuously check back with the breath, taking a supportive breath that supports you in your strength, your flexibility, your balance. And then I suggest inhaling generously, exhaling, sighing out. Notice belly and ribcage expand on your inhale. Optional exhale, sigh out. I emphasize that sighing out because we have a much more immediate understanding of that relationship of the physical, mental, emotional body being connected through the breath. As we exhale, sigh out, we realize that physical tension is released also with an emotional tension and a mental tension. That inhaling and that exhaling is a sort of reset button here. Soften and relax the body, invite that inner stillness, observing your breath or any thoughts without judgment. Noticing it takes time to cultivate our attention, to come back to this present moment. We're going to wake up our bodies with a full body stretch, lifting our arms up overhead, interlacing our fingers. We point our toes. You can lift your abdomen up towards the ceiling. By lifting your abdomen, you're releasing some tension there around the lower spine. And separate your shoulder blades. You can point your toes, flex your feet. Inhale. Exhale. You can start to release that full body stretch. We're gonna bend our knees, soles of the feet on the floor. So we're gonna go through a couple of rounds here of lifting our hips. This first round, we're only lifting our hips a few inches off the floor. So palms are on the mat. You're noticing weight placed on your heels all the way to the balls of your feet, toes, as you gently lift your hips, again, just a few inches. We're just activating here, cultivating that body awareness. So you're noticing anywhere from the weight distributed around your feet. You're noticing your tailbone lifted, an activation around the glutes and the quads. Notice your core. And now release hips onto the floor, or tailbone onto the floor. Take a breath. On this next round, lift your hips a little higher. Not all the way up, but higher than the first round. Once again, checking in, distributing your weight on your heels to your toes.
Glutes and quads are activating. And then release. Inhale. Exhale. We're gonna lift our hips as high as we can now. So lift up, imagining a cord lifting you up from your belly around the abdomen. You can either keep both palms onto the floor or interlace your fingers and then draw your shoulder blades closer together. It's gonna get you some more lift. Now as we're here, we're gonna maintain and hold this pose with our breath. We're still inhaling and exhaling. Invite your deep breathing. You're gonna notice your hips, any collapsing around the hips, and then lift your hips even higher. You're challenging here some glute strength and quad strength. You're opening and stretching throughout the quads and glutes as well, and hips. There's a gentle stretch around the abdomen as well. Lift your hips as high as you can. You're releasing some tension in the mid-back. And release your hips back down towards the floor. Inhale, exhale. Arrive to this present moment. And then last round, lift your hips as high as you can. Either palms on the floor or interlace your fingers. Draw your shoulder blades closer together. Place weight on your glutes, your toes, engage your glutes. Feel free to hear your inhale and your exhale. Release your hips back down towards the floor. We're gonna float our feet off the floor, knees are bent. Take your hands to your knees. Round your spine, hold forehead towards your knee, chin towards your chest. Inhale. Exhale. Release your head. Lengthen both legs up towards the ceiling. Lengthening your legs. Point your toes downwards towards you. You're activating and stretching just by lengthening the legs here around the calves, behind the knees, down to your hamstrings. Now that depends how much you're lengthening the legs and pointing your toes downwards towards you. So the more active you are there, the more you'll invite a deeper stretch. Slowly release your heels down towards the floor. Now find a point to hover so your feet will float off anywhere from 1 foot, 2 feet off the floor. Core is active, hold. Palms are on the floor. And release your heels. Ground your palms onto the mat. We're gonna go ahead and lift. Keep your legs long out in front of you. Flex your feet. Check in with your posture. Your core is active, supporting a long spine. Shoulders, which carry so much tension, are purposely drawn down. Actually, let's take our palms right onto our thighs. Let's bring our shoulders up towards our ears and then draw them back. Just 2 or 3 times there. After those 3 times here, concentrate on your legs. You're flexing your feet. And then after a breath here or 2, you can either soften your feet or keep your feet flexed and then fold over. Belly shifts towards your thighs. Different positions here with your hands. Fingertips can rest on your thighs, shins, or you can shift your hands to your toes. Now you're breathing into your boundary. Earlier in class, I mentioned that we're continuously coming back to the breath from moment to moment throughout the class. In this pose, we work on our flexibility. We inhale and exhale into what's opening up for us. Noticing our boundary, breathing into that boundary. And perhaps folding a little bit more. It can always be subtle. Inhale, exhale. Two more breaths here. Release here. Bring both soles of the feet together. Palms press. Lengthen your spine and fold. Your elbows can rest on the crease behind your knees. Same principle here where your belly is falling down towards the floor. Earlier, that belly was falling towards your thighs. You're hinging here at the hips. Inviting an intentional breath. Inhale. Exhale, another breath here. Inhale. Exhale and release. Shift into a cross-legged position. We've been focusing around our lower body, releasing also throughout the lower back, mid-back. Now let's focus a little bit more on shoulders, neck, torso. So first we'll come into a twist. We're going to take our left hand to rest on our right knee. Now twist towards the right. Now as you're twisting here, you're grabbing your knee intentionally to intensify your twist. You can grab that knee and you're also shifting your chin towards your left shoulder. It doesn't have to make it all the way there. Your fingertips are on the mat or floor. Hold, invite a comfortable breath here. It's harder to take those deep breaths and twist. Just find a comfortable breath and release. Opposite side. Now twist towards the left. Grip your knee. Chin moves towards that right shoulder. Inhale. Exhale. Come back to center. Inhale, lift your arms up overhead. Interlace your fingers, palms up towards the ceiling. Hold. Inhale. Exhale. Extend your elbows, lengthen your arms. Shift towards the left side of the room. Focus on your side body here. Your chin is neutral. A way to guarantee that is just keeping your gaze shifted towards the floor. Noticing there's any tension. If you're locking your neck, relax your neck. Back to center, opposite side. Your sit bones are grounded on the floor. Full body awareness. Noticing palm spreads. Sit bones on the floor. A stretch of the side body. Neutrality in the chin and the neck. Back to center. Release your hands right behind your head. Elbows press towards the back. So notice any elbows that are pointing forward, and instead take your elbows
shift them towards the back. Twist towards the left and towards the right at your own pace. Either holding one side or shifting continuously from one side to the next. And after a few rounds, you can release. Drop hands onto your knees, one round, shoulders up towards our ears, we draw them back. Inhale, lift your arms up overhead, palms up, round your spine, chin towards chest. Press your palms out towards the front. You want that rounding in the spine. You want that chin moving towards your chest, separating your shoulder blades. Release your hands. Now we'll go ahead and shift to sit in a child's pose or to step back into a child's pose. We're just going to take a moment of pause here before we move into the more active portion in class. So in your child's pose, you have two expressions here. I'll go ahead and demonstrate both. So the most common one is with both palms stretched out or arms are long here, forehead on the floor. So I'm sinking my chest belly towards the floor, sinking it back into my hips. Or, and this is going to focus a little bit more on the shoulders, backs of the hands are on the floor, framing around your ankles or feet here. Forehead on the floor, left hand as well, backs of the hands on the floor. Now here, I collapse my shoulders forward. There's less support for the head here. However, your shoulders, you experience that rounding forward of the shoulders. So either position works. Take a few breaths here, anywhere around 5 breaths. Now, not being particular about it has to be exactly 5 breaths. It's more of an estimate. Allow yourself to sink into your breath. Inhale, receive anything that supports you. Exhale, release anything that doesn't. Set your intention for the class. It could be a word or phrase you want to go back to throughout your practice. At any point, inhaling here, exhaling, sighing out. On that next breath cycle, lengthen the length of your inhale and exhale, just a little longer than you're accustomed to. After a breath, you're going to start to release your child's pose. We're going to come up into our forward fold. Make sure your feet are hips width distance apart. Please be mindful of your neck and head. Neck and head is relaxed here. Inhale, press through your feet. Let's sweep our arms up overhead, recalling our intention, that a word or a phrase you set in your child's pose. Hands can meet in front of your heart center, or hands can frame your hips into this expression of mountain pose. So we're going to practice some inner stillness here. Notice about 3 breaths. Inhaling, noticing your heels, length of your spine. Eyes are open or closed. If your eyes are open, you're keeping your gaze steady.
Inviting the present moment, inviting the breath that most supports you right now. Maintain this mountain pose. So we're going to prepare to create our own personal rhythm of 5 sun salutations. So for the first sun salutation, I'm going to go ahead and cue. Well, I'll cue for all of them. But for this first one, we're going to hold the poses a little longer. We're going to break them down just to make sure that you have an awareness for the next sun salutation. So what you're looking for, what creates a pose of deeper integrity. In your mountain pose, you want to be aware of your toes, your heels, the length of your spine. Inhaling and exhaling. In our sun salutations, our hands are usually meet in front of our heart center. We come into this expression of mountain pose. You notice right hand press against left hand. Now, ideally, you're inhaling here and exhaling, releasing your hands. So there's a natural inhale as you lift your palms up. Now remain here, little pause button here. So as I lift my arms up, I'm inhaling, gathering, extending my spine, still noticing my heels, my toes, perhaps my fingertips radiate, meaning they're open. And then ideally on an exhale, I'm folding down. So to fold down, we can do what we call a swan dive, or kind of wings or hands kind of flat open. We exhale, bend our knees, hands to shins. So do a little bend to your knees. You're watching your neck and head as you're folded over here. So this is when you're finishing that exhale. Your hands are placed on your shins, preparing you for your inhale. You're inhaling halfway up. So by halfway up, I'm distributing weight on my heels. I'm sliding my shoulders back and my spine is long. What do I mean by long? I mean that I'm not crunching up or hyperextending as well. It's just comfortably long, shoulders are pushed back. My chin, my neck feel even. Exhale, I fold. You can invite a little bend to your knee. Watch your neck and head here. It's easy to start thinking about the next pose, your plank pose, as you're folding here and you start activating your body. Get that complete exhaling, folding, relaxing the neck, the head. Now step back into your plank pose. Here, your hands are right beneath your shoulders. Feet are about hips width distance apart. I'm activating my core strength here, quad strength here. You want to try to not collapse the body where your lower back is caved. You want to lengthen your spine here. Inhale, exhale. Now watch your elbows here. Release them down towards the floor, keeping your elbows close down towards the floor. Your hands are framing your chest in preparation for your upward facing dog. Tops of the feet are on the floor. Elbows remain close to my torso, meaning I'm not opening up my elbows. I lift, extending my elbows. Now as I'm here, I'm checking my shoulders. They're not crunching up next to my ears. I'm not collapsing around my upper body. I'm purposely pressing through my palms, stretching through the abdomen, opening my chest. My gaze is steady. My glutes are engaged to support me. On an exhale, lift up into your downward facing dog. You're in that upside down V. Your heels can be lifted. Here in your downward facing dog, you're not here just in this upside down V. You're purposely pressing your palms, bringing your chest closer towards your thighs. Invite a generous breath in your down dog. Now take your gaze between your hands, and here you're either walking up or jumping to that forward fold. We take an inhale halfway up, similar principle here, back is spine, flat, and then exhale, neck and head are soft. Press through your heels, we're going to sweep up overhead. There's a natural tendency here, invigorating energy, symbolic energies, we're lifting our arms up. Symbolic here that we're integrating that energy down to our heart center. We inhale and exhale. So those are little details to look out for as you're moving through the poses. Remember, you're not thinking about the next pose. You're present with the pose that's right in front of you, creating your own personal rhythm. I'll go ahead and cue, but you can move at your own pace. We're gonna go for 4 sun salutations. Inhale, lift your arms up, spine extended. Exhale, my neck and head fully soften and release. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, my neck and head fully release. I step back into a plank pose. Ideally, you're inhaling as you step back, and then exhaling as you fold down. Now that's when you're creating a vinyasa, a flow, moving with each breath. Inhale up into an upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. But of course, you can always approach your sun salutations. Take your gaze right between your hands, walk or jump up. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. As I was saying, you can always approach your sun salutations where you're with each pose for a couple of cycles of breath if you're exploring something in particular. Right now, I'm cueing with the breath. You release your hands, inhale, arms lift. Exhale, bend your knees. This is our 3rd sun salutation. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release, step back, plank pose. So we create a flow here. As we're exhaling, moving with each breath, we move 3 pose. Inhale, exhale, downward facing dog. Take a breath there. Exhale, take your gaze between your hands, walk or jump up, hands to shins. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release, softening your neck. Keep your arms up overhead. A really powerful symbolic gesture, invigorating, bringing up the energy of the day, taking it down to our heart center. It's a metaphor here. We take a breath, inhale, exhale. Move into our 4th sun salutation, lifting our arms up. Exhale, fold down into your forward fold. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release, step back into your plank pose. On an exhale, release down towards the floor. Inhale up, upward facing dog. And then exhale, down dog. You can always invite a full cycle of breath, inhaling and exhaling in your down dog. And now take your gaze between your hands, walk or jump up to that forward fold. You're inhaling halfway up. Exhale, release. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Now you're coming into standing, into your mountain pose. Right hand presses against left hand presses against the right hand. Take a breath here and we'll move through our 5th sun salutation. Lift your arms up overhead. Exhale, fold down, forward fold. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. Step back into your plank pose. Release down towards the floor. Inhale, upward facing dog. And then exhale, downward facing dog. Once in your down dog, lift your left leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. Left knee moves towards that left elbow, hover, and then press through your palms, lift your leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. Release your foot back down towards the floor. Opposite side, lift your right leg, bend your right knee, stack your hips. Right knee moves towards that right elbow. Lift your leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. Release your foot back down towards the floor and then sit back in your child's pose. Taking a moment of pause and rest, which requires its own type of practice when we slow down and we're still and we're actually present with the body. Feel free to inhale, exhale, side out. If you have trouble concentrating, just lengthen your inhale and exhale a little longer than you're accustomed to. That being said, you can always use that throughout the class. Lengthening an inhale and exhale to bring your attention back into your body and back to this present moment. We're cultivating that
little, what I call a little focus muscle. And recall your intention, that intention that you set at the beginning of the class. Recall that word or phrase. Welcome that breath that supports you right now. Three more intentional breaths in our child's pose. After those three breaths, start to release the pose, ground your palms onto the floor. We're lifting into our downward facing dog. Take your gaze right between your hands, walk or jump up to that forward fold. Now take that left hand onto the floor, shin or thigh, and then lift your right arm up towards the ceiling. You have a generous bend to your left knee. You can lengthen your right leg for a deeper stretch around the hamstrings and hips and glutes. Don't forget to breathe. And now opposite side. Lift your left arm up towards the ceiling. Inhale. Exhale. Release. This time we're going to roll up slowly to standing, very purposely allowing our arms to dangle. Noticing that release. Noticing that intentional results. We intentionally, physically let go. Come up to your mountain pose, hands framing your hips. Now we're inviting an active mountain pose. Just because we're standing and still doesn't mean that we become passive. We're actually very active. Your eyes can be opened or closed. Imagine that if I tried to move you, that it would be difficult for me to do so because you're so grounded in your stance, glutes and core are active, your arms are radiating out, fingertips as well. And then take a breath from your heels all the way up to the crown of your head. Exhale, release another time. Inhale, from your heels all the way to the crown of your head. Exhale, release. Last round, from your heels to the top of your head. Inhale, exhale, release. You release your mountain pose. Notice that shift in the energy when your body is active in that mountain pose and now you soften the body. You get out of that strict pose. So we're going to prepare here for a high lunge. So that means we're going to take our left foot forward and take our right leg back. So as we take our right leg back, we tend to emphasize warrior one poses in this class, but I want to make sure that we have some low lunges here. So for your low lunge, your right foot is not in a diagonal. So you want to make sure your toes face towards, are in line with your hips, face towards the whatever your front is. You're lifting your heel here. Now you can experiment here with what that feels like. You do have to get some strength there around the feet. And then with your left leg, similar principle, where we bend our knee, where it's about a 90 degree bend. Now as I'm here,
I'm very aware of glutes and quads active, supporting this low lunge. Hold here, your hands can come in front of your heart center. They can lift up overhead, so either expression works. Now this is a pose of both strength and balance. Breathe, inhale. Exhale, you want to sink into your hips. Hips are square towards the front, core is active. Lots of burn here in the legs. Inhale, exhale, dive down. So your hands are directly beneath your shoulders. Watch that right foot, so now you're in a low lunge. Either keep your leg extended or release your knee onto the floor. So either option works. Do make sure that right hand is going to be right beneath your shoulders. Notice any shifts forward or back. Press that right hand onto the floor. Lift your left arm up. Again, that right knee can come onto the floor. Hold the pose. Full body strength. Lift your left hip up towards the ceiling. Drop that left hand. Now shift both hands forward. Lift your right leg as high as you can. Standing splits. And our right foot meets that left foot. 3 rounds. We're going to inhale halfway up. Helps us arrive to these present moments, these simple breaths that line up and sync up with our body's movements. Make sure your neck and head are relaxed. I'm always going to emphasize that. And then after that 3rd round, slowly roll up to standing. Distribute weight. Edges on the feet, heels and toes. Spine slowly lengthens. There's no rush. Notice that experience of intentionally slowing down. Inhale. Exhale. Hands in front of your heart center. Another breath. Very good. Mountain pose, active mountain pose, hands framing your hips. We're going to take an inhale, exhale, side up. Feel free to hear your breath. Inhale, exhale, side up. Third round, inhale. Exhale, side out. Release that active mountain pose. You're going to pedal your feet on the floor. Notice the difference. We're noticing that subtlety in our bodies. This the different way we move, the way we activate our core, the way we position our hands, our feet, all create a different inner experience for ourselves. It's part of us cultivating that body awareness. All right, low lunge. Our right foot steps forward, left leg steps back. You want to make sure your toes face the front, so your heels, your toes are parallel with the front of the mat. Your heel is lifted to whatever degree is comfortable for you. You bend your right knee. Your legs are these scissors attempting to close. My glutes and my quads are pretty active here. There's a little bit of a burn there. Your hands can remain in front of your chest. Your spine is long, or you lift your arms up. Core is active, spine is long. You're grounding that right foot onto the floor. Keep your gaze steady out in front of you. Inhale. Exhale. Sinking into your hips. Inhale. Exhale. It's a pose of balance and strength. Invite a generous breath. And then start to release, leading to your chest and your heart. Hands beneath your shoulders. We're preparing here. Low lunge. Double check that left heel and toes. They face and are parallel to the front of the mat. Left hand is beneath your shoulder. Lift your right arm up towards the ceiling. You have the option of releasing your knee onto the floor. Lift your right hip higher towards the ceiling, especially if that left leg is long. Inhale, exhale. Release your hand onto the floor. Inch both hands forward. Lift your left leg as high as you can. Standing splits. Belly drops towards the thigh. Neck and head are relaxed. Left foot meets that right foot. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release 2 more times. And then in that next round, your choice how you come up to standing. Make it intentional, make it part of your practice. We're gonna go ahead and seal the standing portion of the class with a sun salutation. I'll go ahead and cue, but move at your own pace. Release your hands. Inhale, arms lift. Exhale, pull down, forward fold. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release, step back into plank pose. Release down towards the floor. Inhale up. Exhale, downward facing dog. In your down dog, lift your left leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. Left knee towards that left elbow, hover. Lift your leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. Release your foot back down towards the floor. Invite a generous breath. Opposite side, lift your right leg, bend your right knee, stack your hips. Right knee towards that right elbow, hover for strength. Lift your leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. Release your foot back down towards the floor. And then shift back into your child's pose. Taking a moment to ground that intention you set at the beginning of class. How are you in integrity with that word or phrase? Invite some intentional breaths here. Two more breaths here. Start to release your child's pose. Shift into a tabletop. Checking that your hands are beneath your shoulders and knees and hips width distance apart. Press your left palm onto the floor. Lift your right arm up towards the ceiling. We're preparing for a needle pose. Release your shoulder onto the floor. You have the option of lifting your left arm up towards the ceiling or resting that hand on your lower back. And then release. I'm going to take a cow and cat pose here. Inhale. Exhale, round your spine, chin towards chest. After that cat and cow pose, lift your left arm up towards the ceiling. And then left shoulder onto the mat. Lift your right arm up towards the ceiling, either remaining here or resting your hand on your hip. A good twist here. And release. Check in with your hands. Center beneath your shoulders. Inhale up. Exhale, round your spine. Chin towards chest. Inhale up. Exhale, round your spine. Chin towards chest. Inhale up. Exhale, round your spine. And after a breath there, release the pose. We're going to prepare to lay on our backs. Lengthen your legs. Make sure you have room behind you to lay back. Palms up towards the ceiling. Chin towards your chest. Release. Slowly rolling down. Holding here. Chin moves towards the chest. Any shaking is fine. And then drop your head back. Inhale. Exhale, side out. Bring both knees to float off the floor. We're going to come into a twist. Drop your knees towards the right. Bring your arms out to a T. Drop your head towards the left. Soften your body. Inhale. Exhale. And release. Come back to center. Drop your knees towards the left. Bring your arms up to a T. Soften down the neck, spine to your hips. One more breath. Release, come back to center. Float both feet off the floor. Grab your knees with your hands and then rock to the left and to the right. And then once you've rocked to the left to the right, bring your feet onto the floor. Now take the edges of your feet to the edges of your mat. So your knees come closer together, so they're forming like a little mountain. And then drop your knee, just collapse that knee. You're opening here throughout the glute and the hip, even the lower back. So that left knee is still raised. That right knee is below that left knee. edge of that right foot comes off the mat. Allow gravity to naturally pull down on that right thigh, hip, and knee. And release. Come back to that mountain. Edge of that right foot is still in line with the edge of your mat. Now drop your left knee. Deep belly breath. And release. Knee comes back to center. Start to lengthen your legs, palms up towards the ceiling. We'll come into our last resting pose. Inhale, exhale, side up. Reacquaint yourself with your full breath. That same breath you can go back to throughout your day. If you're not regularly taking a yoga class, or honestly don't know how you go back to reminding yourself that your full breath is, I teach yoga all the time, and throughout the day, I forget to drop into that full breath. Know how that feels like in your body. It takes practice to just be aware of how that lands. And then feel free to continue some practice of some deep, long breaths, or just go back to your breath's natural rhythm. There's value in that as well. This is a very precious time in your yoga practice where there's no expectation of doing or performing, doing something right or wrong. You're just softening the body, noticing your body relaxed, noticing the wisdom of doing nothing, and then noticing that in order for us to let go, to receive and integrate, it means that we have to take moments of pause, of slowing down, of doing nothing. So as you're here, the only purposeful thing here is to relax further. So I'll go ahead and guide you. Notice the back of the head on the mat. Release down the neck and shoulders, down to your wrists and fingertips. Down the length of your arms. Release the upper back, mid back, lower back. Soften down the hips, behind the knees, the ankles and toes. Observe thoughts and sensations without judgment.
Start to return to your breath. Inviting a generous and leisurely breath. Notice sounds around you. Return some movement to your fingertips and your toes. You have the option of inviting a full body stretch, lifting your arms up overhead, pointing your toes. You can turn your body to the left or to the right, allowing it to remain heavy and relaxed. Once again, return to a generous and leisurely breath. There is no hurry. Notice the effects of your practice. And after another breath or two, start to make your way up to your seat, moving with integrity and presence. You've been cultivating so much self-awareness throughout the class, physically, mentally, emotionally. Notice that this is an enormous task to slow down, to be with the breath, to be with the body, to noticing what feels right, what doesn't feel right. So always self-compassion in your process, your journey, whether it's related to yoga or not. Always honor your path. And on that note, we'll seal the class in gratitude with an intentional breath. Let's take our hands in front of our heart center. Let's inhale here and exhale. And in the tradition of yoga, the highest in me sees the highest in you. Namaste.